I may end up asking you. Oh, we're streaming. Sweet. I may be asking you in this season, what's been most challenging, but what's been also a blessing in this. Some stuff we've kind of talked about, but we'll let you chime in at some point.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I'm gonna show it
Okay.
later.
Like
Yeah.
honest though?
In this. Some stuff. Oh, has someone got YouTube going still?
I just muted it.
Okay. I'm trying to find it on YouTube.
Can you like?
Look at that beard on that guy. That thing is dangerous.
I keep thinking I'm gonna shave it off, but then I go to do it and I can't. So.
Don't ever.
Great decision.
What do you think about that, Whitney? It's dangerous.
It's a lot. It's dangerous.
It's a lot.
It's just a lot.
It's a lot of man right there.
Nice sweatshirt. Nice sweatshirt, Kyle.
Oh, are you rocking yours?
Rocking it.
So
I was thinking during this quarantine, maybe we should design some more. We should probably take some votes on the next round.
There you go.
Actually, probably no one can afford sweatshirts after all this. Maybe if that government money comes in.
Oh, we got
Ours
ours.
came.
Oh
Really?
man.
Yeah. How, you get it? You just get a check in the mail?
We got it direct deposit today.
Oh, we're not that cool.
Yeah. How did you do that? Did you set it up?
Well, I think because we had our taxes set up with direct deposit. Is that right?
I think so.
Because
We just never do our taxes, so
Oh yeah.
There's
They have no way,
just
they
yeah.
have no way of getting our.
Sorry,
that's awesome.
we've derailed us already, and it's been 2 minutes. So
No, you're good. I'm trying to share on
I
Facebook real quick.
No,
So
I don't like when I
you guys
can't
keep
see
talking.
my face.
did any of you get it?
We didn't.
Oh,
Not yet, anyway.
We
don't
do
need it.
shoot.
It's kind of like hard to hear.
Did you ditch the mic setup, Spence?
So what?
The mic setup that you had downstairs?
Oh no, we're
No.
just on the couch.
No, we're down here.
Oh, I liked it when you had to have a microphone in front of your face.
No, that's over there. A big mess of stuff.
Did you do
Yeah.
a call with a microphone?
Yeah, I did. I couldn't figure out it was plugged all in, so I was like, I'll just do it with the microphone.
It was awesome.
We did a Zoom call for worship one time and Ryan Boswell. That wasn't that long ago. Ryan Boswell was like in a legit, like it looked like he was getting ready to like do a podcast, and he had this really
yeah.
nice mic right here. We're all like, did you set this up just for this? Like,
Yeah.
but it was his little recording spot
Oh.
too. It was so professional.
That's awesome.
Boz. I love it. So we got David Witt joining us tonight. I know we got some people already streaming on YouTube. It seems like a lot of people seem to watch it even after this post. But Dave and Witt are some of our closest friends, and for a long time,
Yeah.
and super faithful family at Anchor. And we just asked them to hop on to join the conversation. Why don't you explain real quick your relationship to Witt, and I'm going to figure out how to show my relationship with Dave. Go ahead.
So Whitney and I own Cakes in the Zoo together, and we've been friends much longer than we've been doing that. But yeah, I guess that's our working relationship.
You know,
Our business
very
relationship.
professional.
Yeah.
How many quarantine boxes did you end up
Ooh.
with?
We sold it.
120.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that was good.
a lot.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Dave and I have known each other for a super long time. We were in each other's weddings, or I was in your wedding. Were
So
you-
get this. I cut the cake at Dave and Witt's wedding, and Whitney cut the cake at our wedding.
Yeah.
Way before we ever made cakes.
Cute.
Awesome. Yeah. So pretty
Okay.
fun.
I'm trying to figure out how to share computer screen. I've never done this before.
Oh no.
Let's say, what time of our lives was this picture taken?
It was a while ago.
Oh.
Have you shared screen before, Tuck?
No.
I'm clicking share screen. Oh, maybe this will do it. Oh, how about this?
Oh, there it is.
Oh man, yeah.
Y'all see that?
Those old YMCA team.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Guys.
Kyle is
Kyle's
standing up.
standing.
No.
Kyle's standing.
That's awesome.
He looks like 5 years older than Kyle here.
I showed Charlie this picture a little bit ago. She's like, that just looks like Avon with weird hair.
Yeah, and I'm like, that looks just like your kid.
Dave, what's
That
weird
is
about
crazy.
this is it's 1998 and I was born in 1985. So that's a 13-year-old right there.
No!
Dang.
You look so
13
young.
there,
Younger
Kyle?
than 13.
Yeah, no, so that's 6th grade then.
Can you
Wow.
believe that?
Wow.
Is Al Hamster
Kyle, you're 13.
Crazy.
So also
I'm
there's
probably seriously like 5'5" in that picture though, or 5'6".
You probably would.
I gotta figure out-
Kyle standing in the photo?
That's a big- Oh, no. Come on now.
That's awesome.
So funny.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So funny. Some of our best friends and been through a lot together. And so it's just really fun to have you guys join. Hey, our first topic of conversation tonight is first dates. And I don't know if I know.
Yeah, we don't have Jenna.
We don't have Jenna, but so Tucker, you can give your own version. With, and
What's that mean? My own version of what?
I don't know. Like you can make it whatever you want.
You guys are all telling your own first dates together.
Up.
Yeah.
We have two
Right.
versions.
Our story is
makes more sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
If you
not
wanna
like
share
first date
dates with
ever.
people you're not with currently, that's fine too. But
I was like, I honestly have no idea what my first date was. I could not remember what it was.
your
I
first
do
date-
remember it with Jenna though.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, good. Phew.
Do you want to
Yeah,
spill
Tucker lead us.
spill the beans there?
Those beans.
Spill the tea. What's going-
Yeah, well, Jenna we had a very interesting, I like you, you like me, but no one knows about it thing. There was a power dynamic built into the relationship where I was the assistant to the regional manager,
Uh-huh.
and she was a lowly steward of she was a normal payroll employee.
Mm.
But after months of long-suffering, patient Jenna, anyway, finally called her up. It actually was really funny. So she had resolved, like, look, this is not going to happen. She had gone back to California over Christmas and had kind of, I'm using her words here, grieved it, just kind of let that go. And okay, this is not going to happen. And at the beginning of January of last year, myself and Stephen Ressett went down there and visited for 4 or 5 days. And I got back, and the day I got back, I was like, I'm going to call her and ask her out on a date. So I called her and said, like, hey, that was super fun. That was great. Just going to pull one out of the hat here. You want to go on a date? And I'm not joking. This was the literal noise that was made on the other end of the telephone. Ah, I was like, oh, not what I was hoping for, but that's fine. That's okay. And then she went into telling me how, like, a week before that, she had just come to this understanding of, like, okay, this probably isn't going to happen. Let's move past it. And I think there was something pretty, at least for me, unique and special about getting out of all that I was in here and kind of replanting myself in a different environment for a while. And just having a breath of fresh air was really good, that we were just able to spend some time together and have some fun together. So then I asked her out. I went to Barnes & Noble. It was the first part of the date. And the task was go find 3 books that tell the other person something about yourself. So whether it was like your favorite meal or somewhere you wanted to travel or like a hobby or something that you were really interested in. So we spent probably 10 minutes walking around Barnes and Noble, grabbing a couple of books, and then we went over to a corner and shared that with each other, and then went back to I think we went maybe to her house, I'm not sure, and then cooked dinner and played cribbage and called it a night. That was the end.
You're such an intellectual.
I love that.
It's incredible.
Awesome.
Do you remember your 3 books? And more importantly, do you remember Jenna's 3?
I don't remember any
Oh.
of the above. I
Do you
think
remember who won cribbage that night?
I did. I had to teach
Okay.
them how to
For
play. They
sure,
crushed
yeah.
it. I remember there was my go-to is I'd done that exercise actually in a small group with a couple of guys before, and it was like to again same kind of process to get to know each other. But my kind of card, the ace up the sleeves, I always go grab a book about the Nazis and I come back, and that always throws people off because they're like, what is going on here? That's just my favorite time in history. I took a class on it in college. It was called the Third Reich, and it was the most fascinating class I've ever taken. So there's like this weird niche part of me that is just enthralled by kind of World War II history in general. But I also kind of like to get that shock and awe thing. So I don't think I did that night. Full disclosure, I didn't think that was a good first date tactic. But I do remember we both grabbed books about traveling. I think she grabbed one
Cool.
that was more globally oriented, and I think mine was Italy.
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
Did either of you grab the Bible or?
You know what?
They have a nice Bible section there.
They do have a good section. And
Not even like purpose-driven life or anything.
no, she did. She grabbed Jesus Calling.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she did.
The kids version.
No,
That's a good one.
I've never read it. She is way more spiritual than I am.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
We did the same thing. We just we grabbed 3 Bibles each. So
Yeah, you guys are
yeah, we knew we were made for each other.
Whoa.
All it takes.
Oh, I love
Anyways, enjoy the Nazi books. That's terrible.
Thank you.
That's cool.
That's awesome, Tuck.
it. I really like it.
That's a good date idea now.
That is.
That
It
is
Can you do it when you're married? Like is that okay?
I've heard that you should stop dating when you get married.
Oh, oh, good.
good advice.
Cheaper that way, right?
We'll probably do a quarantine version of it. Just each hop on Amazon on your phones and
Wait, do you buy the books or you just pick them out?
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer for Barnes and Noble. We just went and picked them out and then put them back on the shelf and got out. Thanks a lot for your store.
Oh,
Great date idea.
that's good. Like, oh, what do you want for your birthday? Just go pick it out real quick, and then I don't buy it for her. That's great.
yeah.
Like, this is getting good.
I love it. It's a good story, Tuck.
So awesome.
That's awesome.
Yes.
All right, who's up?
I want to hear Robbie and Julianne.
We disagree about our first date.
Ooh, getting
No.
spicy.
Yeah. Ooh, nice. I'm convinced that we had a date that she said wasn't one. So,
Yeah.
Well, so I feel like I should give my version then.
well, I kind of feel like I should get mine. But
I like that.
So I was at Crown College early because I was on the volleyball team and we had to do, volleyball practice before school started. So I was there a few weeks before school started. And Robbie ended up coming there early too because his sister worked there. And so he knew that it was my birthday coming up. And at this point, we're just friends. We'd hung out a few times. But he was like, oh, wait, it's your birthday coming up? Like tomorrow, I think. It was like last minute. He was like, are you doing anything on your birthday? And I was like, well, I mean, I don't really know that many people. I'll probably just hang out in my dorm room, and I've got volleyball and stuff. And he's like, well, I mean, we could like hang out at the Mall of America and just go walk around and stuff. And I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
So we went to the Mall of America and walked around, and it was fun. And then I think we got dinner,
Who paid?
and he did pay, but it
Wow,
wasn't like
weird,
this
not a
big. And then we went back to the dorms, but I mean, to me, that didn't feel like a date. Like, hey, you want to just go hang out since you have nothing better to do on your birthday? Sure. And there's nothing like at this point, I don't know if he's interested in me. There's been
But
no,
you know now, so you can call it what
so,
it is.
but it just was very vague in my mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he says that was our first date. What do you guys think? Was that a date?
Robbie's first date version.
Okay.
Let me back up a little bit because I lived 6 hours from Crown, and you weren't allowed to be on campus until like check-in days or whatever it was. But I went to stay with my sister specifically to see Julianne. I just didn't tell her that because I have no game up to this day. So I was just scared. And so the fact that I even said, do you want to hang out on your birthday? She asked me for my phone number when we
It's true.
met each other. So the fact that I did that should have been a clue to her.
But how was I supposed to know
he's-
that about you?
But now you know. Now you know.
I just
So it was a big leap of faith for me. I drove and maybe her car. No, I drove and paid for gas. And yeah, I didn't say, will you go on a date with me? But I didn't know how to do that. But anyway, in my mind, I was pursuing Julianne, and that was the first, like, just the two of us.
date or just
I
hang
guess I would need to see a definition in order to be able to tell you. But
do you feel like it needs to be defined?
I was
Like,
saying,
I want to take you out, or could,
it was just the two of us,
and
At-
like
at a
1,000 other
very-
people in the Mall of America.
but very small Christian college, Robbie. So, hey,
Julianne, is it only a date if he's expressed his intentions?
No, I think
okay, I would like to
like
marry you.
even
Let's get this
he
thing
wouldn't
started.
have to express his intentions. I think even if it was something like, could I take you out, those words, or could I take you on a date? I don't know, like even just a sliver that there's something more than a friendship, I guess. I don't know. That's just in my mind, because to me it felt so vague that I just, and of course, because I wanted it to be more, but no, there was like nothing for me to point to believe it was anything romantic, I guess, in his words, or I don't know. That's just, I didn't see that there was anything more than just hanging out as friends.
I think the obvious follow-up question is, then when was our first date?
Yeah.
That's the memorable moment. Oh,
Oh, yeah, when was it?
How much longer was it between that Mall of America and what you defined, Julianne, as your first date?
I mean, it was like a month later.
That's a long time.
That is a long time.
August 23rd is her birthday. On September 1st, we
Oh, I
were
thought it was the end
officially
of September.
dating. So
Oh, okay. I guess it was.
she's a
like-
liar.
I was
and
thinking the end of September.
It does change things. Well, I'm not sure if we should take a vote to decide or if we should just keep the peace.
I
on-
understand why it felt vague, but I really wish I was better at it. But look, it worked.
It worked
so.
out. It worked. And it was
Yeah.
fun in the Mall of America. I do remember being super sore from volleyball conditioning, walking around
Oh,
like
really?
just my legs were a little tight, from all of that conditioning. And we walked a lot because that mall is huge. But it was fun.
And I don't take people to the Mall of America that I don't care about, so that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Jenna's casting her vote that this was a date.
Oh,
Ooh.
okay.
Thank you, Jenna.
Did you ride the Ferris wheel?
Christian College
Oh.
alone.
No.
We didn't.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I love it.
All right, who's up? Do you want to share?
No.
Oh,
Dave will share next.
all right.
No.
I don't. We disagree on ours a bit too, but
Oh, okay.
because there was a third person there.
No, no, no.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No,
But-
but it was so weird. It
What's
was
the
so,
chaperone?
was
Is that
there
a
too.
chaperone?
Gigi and her friend happened to be eating at the same restaurant. That,
And Gigi remembers
were
this
at.
day still too, so
Yeah.
it's super funny. She
But-
calls it she called it a first date too. So Gigi says so.
Well,
so
I think that even her or Sherry asked us if we were on a date, but there was a third
There was-
person there. It's like,
So Gigi and Sherry were also at the first date.
Applebee's.
Applebee's, yeah,
Yeah.
Classic.
after church on Sunday. Yeah.
So how did the person join you?
Charisse, you remember her?
I do.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, we had kind of like just through church functions and stuff had been hanging out at those, and like my parents were hosting a small group for young adults.
Dave,
So.
can I interject? Are you talking about you and Whitney or you and Charisse? were
Yeah,
hanging out?
right. I know. No, me and Whitney.
Okay. I
So
was
this
like,
group
wait a
I
minute,
think thought
turn
that
of
she was
events
setting
here.
us
What's
up.
going on?
Yeah. No, I think Charisse thought she was like trying to hook us up together, and
Okay.
we were already like hanging out quite a bit at that point. So I think we kind of just appeased her and went to lunch with her.
Well, and I
but-
don't think we actually thought she was gonna come, and then she just came,
Oh,
and so it was
How
the
old were
three
you?
of us.
yeah.
And I always think about that was our first date. Really, I don't have any other like memory of like going out on anything formal. Like there was no like, will you go out on a date with me? I think it was just Charisse made this happen, and that's that.
I think it was just one of those things where we started hanging out more and more, So
Yeah.
How old were you guys?
I was 19.
I was 21.
Okay, out of high school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Dave, do you have another specific time that you think was your first date?
I really don't. And we even thought, I don't think so, because I think we just started hanging out so much after that. I mean, I'm sure that, we did plenty of things together, and, but I don't think,
There was no like formal anything other than Applebee's.
How did
And we've
pay-
never eaten there since.
how'd paying for that meal go?
what was that?
How'd paying for that meal go?
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe Charisse.
We probably all paid separate too.
You made Charisse pay for it.
Uh,
Oh, dude, we got to invite people on our dates more often.
well, it's like a kid that's pretty much right out of high school and 2 college kids. So it's like none of us had
We
any
had
money. It's like,
You got the 2 for 20. and paid it
for
to
it.
you.
yeah.
Wait, this is hilarious. Do you see Catherine's comment? Are you taking callers? I've got Ozzy sitting here pretending he's on The View. Yes, hi, I have a question for Julianne.
Can you share
What is it? Type it.
Oh, Ozzy has a question.
Yeah,
for you.
Ozzy, the funniest guy on the planet.
Hey, Tucker, do you want to share the login with them? Let's get Ozzy on.
Yeah, get him in here. We got to get him on there.
Or I already texted to you guys. Maybe I can do it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, this
We'll
is
start
good.
talking about another date. Is it you or the pals? Let's get Ozzy on.
The pals, go ahead, pals.
Ozzy and Catherine have a good one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. We could
I want to hear their story. Yeah.
Seriously. We're high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
Oh, no date then.
Yes.
It doesn't count.
Oh, that's a good question.
You want us to go?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go.
I'm
Well-
not even going to try to tell this story. I can feel the ammunition just
No,
building up right now.
Not ammunition, just when you. Oh no,
Oh,
I'm
no,
in
trouble.
trouble.
Get them on. Get
That's
them
all
on.
dude.
Catherine and Ozzy, you will
Come
accept
on.
and hit go. This is gonna be awesome. Oh man.
Oh, I used to talk about the blurry date lines, or I don't know why I did that. I liked him for like 2 years and we would just like hang out as friends, but that I was the Robbie where that wasn't anything I did like ever, is hang out with a guy by myself ever, but he didn't know that. So we're just like playing tennis and I'm like, like taking, but it couldn't be a date. Like it wasn't. But in my mind, I was the Robbie where it's like, I'm going on all these dates, but
Yep, that was fun playing tennis. Well, see you later.
and then I didn't care at all. No, our first date was awesome because, well, we had talked and like told each other that we liked each other, and we just weren't there officially yet. Well, what were those words doing? I could get real detailed.
Oh man.
That's another thing. I never thought I would be the one to share with a guy that I liked him, like me being the first one. But it came to a point where I was like, I have to, are they not gonna come? So it came to a point where I was like, okay, either this is gonna happen or it's not gonna happen, and I just need to know. And so I told him that I liked him, and his answer was, "My feelings are developing." So
It was my
Yeah.
honest.
it was, and in the moment, that was like that's all I needed. I was like, okay, cool, that's great. But then when I got home, I was like,
What does that mean?
so not sufficient.
I'm buying more time.
Yeah. So I think that was like August. That was like, yeah, it was right after my birthday. So it was probably the beginning or mid-August. And then we like kept hanging out and friends, whatever. But then he lied to me a bunch, but it was good lying because it was like he like set up
Good
this
lying.
whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah, good lying.
It's a great way to build any sort of relationship. On
Fine.
a lot of false things. Yeah.
No, but he talked to my dad, which is a really funny story because he sat down with my dad and like said, "Hey, so I want to date your daughter," and my dad's like, "You don't have to ask me about that."
He's like, yeah, you only have to ask me to marry her. You can date her. I don't care. I was sweating. I was like taking my coffee and didn't know this guy. I'm like, hey, I'd really like to date your daughter. He's like, oh, that's all you had to say? I thought you wanted to marry her or something.
I had never dated anyone, like not in high school or anything. So it was like such a big deal for me that I don't know. I had even told him like, yeah, I like want you to do that, I think, and that would be cool. And my dad just like is the best, but just didn't care. So he like, as far as lying, it was stuff like that to set up for the date day or whatever. But
so
yeah,
December 18th,
yep.
2000 something, I planned this whole day, acted like I was going to work, but totally lied to her. And then I planned this whole day where we got our favorite coffee and we went at Gasworks Hill in Seattle, overlooking Seattle. We had like these good pastries with coffee, and I asked her out right there. And then we made out right on the hill. No, just kidding. That's not true. That's not true.
Yeah, because we were like planning to hang out that day, but then he like last minute, and this happened all the time anyways, but he's like, oh, someone asked me to cover for them. I can't do like any of these plans, but we can still get coffee in the morning and like do that. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I was so sad. But yeah, there was like a note in the donut box with a picture of it was like it was pretty elaborate actually,
I
but
forgot about
there
that.
was a lot of like building time. Like this day wasn't
That
just
was
like a day. I'd been waiting for this moment for like 2.5 years.
And I knew that. So then after that, I was like, can I hold? We didn't make out. I asked to hold her hand.
Oh,
We
man.
held hands, went and got more
So
coffee.
sweaty.
Where at this coffee shop, Slate Coffee,
Oh, yeah.
they ended up having a professional photographer, photographing the coffee there. And so we were in this magazine
For a magazine.
for them,
yeah.
but we ended up being the models. So we got pictures of our first date. And then I planned this whole thing where we drove down to Portland and we hung out in Portland all day. And we went, it was December 18th,
Oh, yeah.
freezing. And so we packed extra clothes and we went and jumped in the bottom of one of the waterfalls by Multnomah Falls. Yeah, Horsetail Falls.
So
We went and jumped in there, and I was wearing my Carhartt onesie, my red one. Just jumped in, looked like Clifford the Big Red Dog. Just
He has like a big
Yeah.
Eskimo hat on and
Eskimo.
a red onesie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, well, there was a big Eskimo out there. Yeah, yeah. So we did.
You
and
have the video, like.
yeah, I got a video.
you
Yeah.
should- Can I find? Is, how do you-
I
oh,
don't know,
I wish we
but
could share with you. It's so
anyway, it was a good first date. Yep.
funny. Yeah,
First date.
pretty good.
You got to share your video on your Instagram stories or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If you don't follow Spencer yet, go follow him. Is it just at Spencer Powell?
And it's probably on.
Yeah, yeah. If you just go ahead and scroll like 6 years ago, you'll find it.
Put it back on your stories.
I like all
So,
the pictures. now.
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll find it.
Oh, that's too much. It's Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Yeah, just yeah.
I actually do remember you posting that video 6 years ago and feeling I had never met Linnea, so I was a bit like defensive of or Spencer, like she better be good for him. She better be good to him. Like I was all protective of Spencer in my mind. So, you better not break that boy's heart.
Now you're protective of Linnea. Like
Come on. Oh, that's too much. I love it.
It was good.
Yeah. Our first date, which was actually my first date of my whole life.
Mhm.
So it was,
Not mine.
I was real nervous. But we had a few people try to guess in there today. No one had it right, but this is how good of friends we are with the Nunnallys. Our first date was also Applebee's.
I guess Wendy's wasn't too far off there.
oh man, I'm getting hungry.
Yeah.
We were dinner at Applebee's, and I remember the table we sat at, and I was so nervous.
I remember our table too. See, it was a date.
Oh, what do you remember about the date?
Not much.
But you agree that was our first
Yeah,
date. It was
yeah.
pretty clear. Yeah,
Were you guys juniors?
We were
Were
senior.
you juniors?
it was senior year.
Oh, senior year. Okay.
So I was 17.
Yeah, I was 18.
Yeah.
So the best part, the most memorable
Oh,
part of the meal,
Yeah.
well, after the meal, do you want to share?
No, it's embarrassing.
So I walked her to the car. We came in separate cars. I walked her to her car and she got in, said goodbye. And I don't think there was like any touching,
No.
no hugging or holding hands or anything. Just walked her to her car and she got in and I just stood like in the middle of the parking lot. She was parked between two cars. And I just kind of stood back there and waited for her to back out and like wave to her. And then I was going to go out to my car. And as she backed out, she was turning and, but like kind of like looking at me and being all cute. And she turns and as she gets like all just right on the edge of turning out, I was like, I think she might be hitting the car next to her. Like, it was real close and I like thought I heard something, but it wasn't like real bad. And then she just like kept going. And then she like waves and just takes off. I actually went and I look at the other car after she left and I was like, I think she might have hit that car. So the next day at school, I go and I like go walk around the front of her car and I see that white paint down the front of her bumper. You definitely hit that car.
Yeah.
It's like, what'd you? She's like, yeah, I think so. I was just so nervous. I just drove away. So she kind of real small hit and run on our first date.
Kyle, am I remembering correctly that you followed Ken into the bathroom?
Oh,
Is that prior to that date?
okay, I've heard.
Yeah, it must. Yeah, it had to. It must have
Yeah,
been because we wouldn't have gone on the
was
date.
it? I don't know.
Yeah, I
It
bet
had to
so
been-
because volleyball was still early in the school year.
Yeah.
So
It
yeah,
must have been quicker.
Spencer, I also felt it was the responsible thing to ask the father if I could date her. But I didn't have very many opportunities in high school to talk to Ken about dating Danny. And so we were at a volleyball tournament that Danny was playing in. And I just was sitting in the crowd watching her dad, just like, he's got to find a way to talk to him. And then the plan was, well, he's got to go to the bathroom. Like, he'll be by himself at that point. So finally, at some break in the match, he walks down, and I just like come down the bleachers and just follow right behind him and follow him into the bathroom. And then think, as I'm like standing there, he's going pee. I was like, this is a terrible idea. I'm gonna ask him here. So I don't think I even had to pee. I think I just like turned around and went and stood in the hallway right outside the door and waited for him to come out of the bathroom and got his attention. It's just, that's the most terrible timing, but it was my only shot. So
Took your shot when you needed it.
you really wanted to go watch the volleyball, so it was a quick conversation. And Applebee's, here we come. Wow. Good stuff.
There we go.
Hey, we got 23 minutes left to talk. We're going to turn it to just slightly different. We're going to just jump into some grief conversation. Robbie, as you gather your thoughts, just going to ask Dave and Whit. The basic question we've asked a lot of people is, in this quarantine, in this social distancing, which is impacting every family differently, what are you guys discovering is most challenging to you? And what are you discovering is the most rewarding in this? So challenge and reward.
I mean, life's not a lot different for me because I'm always home with the boys doing school as it is. But they don't have all of their extracurriculars away from me. So that's been super challenging to be with them literally 24/7. So that's kind of hard. But it's okay.
I think for the boys, it's been, yeah, just a lot of like, Avon's been very involved with youth group, and I think he's been missing that a lot every week. And then even like their cousins and stuff, you know, they do. Avon's got his best friend lives down the street, and they spend tons of time together. And, you know, they haven't seen each other for almost 4 weeks now. Yeah. So I think that's been kind of challenging because, I don't know, it's kind of good and bad. I think they are spending a lot more time together, and they do hang out a lot together and play together, but in turn they also, you know, have sibling fights and things like that. I think that happens more often since they're around each other more often.
We have a new hole in our wall. Lots of stuff broken.
That was actually just from playing though, not
yeah, but still.
Yeah. I don't know. Personally, I mean, the biggest thing for me is just with my work, you know, doing some service calls and things, you know, I've had, you know, community hospital needs you to go check something out, and I feel like I shouldn't go in there, but I don't know. I feel safe at the same time. It's like, I know all these medical professionals are doing their jobs to make sure that I am safe, but yeah, I mean, there's been a few, you know, service calls types, things like that, where I feel uneasy about having to go into these buildings, but
yeah,
I think at the same time, it's been okay, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Overall, I think it's been good. I think for us, I mean, just like with everybody, there's been like the emotional highs, like, but I think a lot of that has just been really exasperated by social media and media in general. So trying to tame that and just like decipher it and not worry. But there's definitely been, and early on, I would say, like, it was kind of like in your face a lot, and so a lot more emotional. But in terms of our livelihood, we haven't really been affected. And
Yeah, I think some of our outside relationships have actually gotten a lot better too, though. Like with our neighbors, I think we have great neighbors and everything, anyways. But it's funny how we have one gentleman that's 83 years old, and that has nothing but time on his hands, and so he calls Whitney almost every day just to check in and see how it's going. And he's a great guy, and so a lot of that kind of stuff. And we some of our other neighbors, they came over and they sat in our driveway, and we sat back farther, but we just sat and talked for a couple hours. And they brought their lawn chairs over, and just that kind of stuff has been
Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know, not that we wouldn't do that stuff before, but it's like, I think because everybody's missing out on that social interaction, they're looking for it more. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. I love it.
That's cute.
Whitney, were you the one that shared that April budget meme?
yes,
What was it again? It was so funny.
like entertainment $0, gas $0. Yeah, what was it, like clothing $0, grocery budget $2,700. That's just normal anyways, but
Your 3 boys, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, funny. It is interesting to see how this impacts different people, and I'm not sure. It's just not fair to compare impact on different families, but it's nice that Dave, you still have income where some people are laid off and trying to figure out what that looks like. And Whit, you were already figuring out school at home with the boys this year. It's grateful to see. We're grateful to see that there's a not dramatic loss or shift for you guys.
No, we feel very fortunate and blessed that I have the job that I have that is one deemed essential, but also, I mean, there's things that I've got to go take care of, make sure an intercom system works so that different facilities can be used for people with injuries, so that the beds that were supposed to be for them are for COVID patients and stuff like that. So and that's a sum of what I've been doing. But I definitely, it's made me think about how, like, I think about like the single moms, that are waitresses and they're out. I mean, it's like they're trying as hard as they can as it is, and then what are they doing now? So when I try to remember how things are fairly normal for me, I think about how hard it is for some of those others. But
No kidding. Wow. Hey, Robbie, why don't you get the ball rolling with just, Robbie brought up a cool, I don't know if it's cool, just a good point to think about of the grief side of some of the loss. So Robbie, if you just want to kind of introduce that thought, we'll just talk about that for the next 15 minutes before we sign off.
Yeah, sure. It is not my thought. I heard a podcast, and I can't remember who the guy was, but he was one of the writers of, not the original writer, but he helped co-write like another chapter for that Stages of Grief book. I think it's old. People know about it because we reference like these are the 5 stages of grief, and I think he added a 6th one, and that's why. So I don't remember his name, but I don't want to take credit for his thinking, but it has created more thoughts in my mind. And one of them, before I talk about grief, is that I'm realizing that so much of my personality is just to sort of move past things or see how to get through something without really dealing with emotion. And I'm learning that you can't really heal unless you feel. And something that I'm learning in this season is practicing things is okay. Like, so often we say, well, I'm just not naturally fill in the blank. I'm not naturally authentic. But authenticity is something you practice. Even the most authentic people practice authenticity, or calm is something you practice, and you can practice anxiety and be an anxious person. So, so I'm trying to practice feeling, as silly as that sounds. And a lot of that came from the conference that a few of us have been to, that Ultimate Leadership Conference. But so all of that to say, this guy was just talking about how when we talk about 9/11, we will say things like, do you remember what the airports were like before 9/11? Which I'm sure we can, most of us. And can everybody? I like to know how old I actually am. Can you, Spencer and Linnea?
Maybe.
Oh yeah.
2001.
Like when you could just go right up to the gate
Yeah.
Yeah.
to pick up people or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said that he feels like post this coronavirus thing, which whenever whenever that ends, that we will say things like, do you remember what it was like prior to that pandemic? And for me, I hadn't really thought about any of that stuff, and even have a hard time thinking about it. But one of the things that it brought to my mind, because he started saying that for a lot of people, this is a time of loss, like a loss of job, yes, but even like things the way they used to be. And it drove me really to start thinking about my kids, and how really your greatest loss is whatever your greatest loss has been. Like, I can't compare my loss is greater than yours, Julianne. Her greatest loss is her greatest loss, and my greatest loss is my greatest loss. And for our kids, the loss of what is normal, or that they've been experiencing, is potentially the greatest loss they've ever experienced. And in some ways they're grieving, like the end of a school year, or Mike is still awake, so I won't talk about it much, but we talked last night a lot about his birthday's on Friday, and there's a significant grief there about what he's lost. And it started making me just think about just being aware that potentially even I feel some loss. And I started thinking about, man, the loss of our Easter service at the fairgrounds, or the loss of momentum maybe for church, or stuff like that. So I don't know, it's just made me a little bit more in tune with the reality that people might be grieving, and it's okay to talk about it. And in fact, it's good to talk about, because you can't heal if you don't feel. So I think that's what I said the other day that you said to talk about, Tucker. I have thought a lot about it, and I'm just learning to put words to my feelings. And so, yeah.
I think that's really good, and I'd love to hear other thoughts. I just, again, referencing some of the conference that a few of us have gone to, just the reality of, without comparing grief, that if you don't see your grief and process your grief, how much that clouds so much of your emotional life, how much it clouds your productivity, how you can relate to other humans and stuff. So I just think it's such a really good point to bring up, that no matter what the level of loss is, to not just downplay it, but to recognize, no, that is something that our family lost, the plans that we had, or the finances, or whatever it is, to recognize that, and just be willing to say that I know it doesn't compare to what someone else lost, but it's worth grieving so that I can continue to relate properly as a dad, or as a coworker, whatever it means to relate to other people, so that I can have my greatest level of creativity moving forward. How do I handle, like, we're most clear-minded when we deal with the grief. So rather than suppressing it and say, well, it's not that bad, or it's not that big of a deal because, well, at least we're in America, or at least it's not what they had. And we've talked about how dangerous the words "at least" are, and how putting that aside and just saying, no, okay, this is my level of grief. And without comparing it, can I at least acknowledge it so that I can get the most amount of healing, so that I can be the best me that's needed for the days that are ahead. I just think it's really important thoughts, Robbie.
One other thing I forgot, and I'll quit talking, is grief is not linear. And so even for me to say, like, if you feel, you'll heal. Well, it's not like like if I
Like a
go
once
to
and done.
feeling, then I'm healed. And I remember I think it was a question from last week about somebody talking about getting over hurt or grief or whatever. And I think it's just key to talk about, but then also being aware that it's not linear and it comes back sometimes at weird times. And the only reason I bring that up for me is actually as a reminder not to get angry at other people when they're just like in what feels like a spiral. Because the two emotions that I tend to have the most are fine and frustrated. So I'm either fine or I'm frustrated, and oftentimes at people who aren't fine. So I just think it's important to know that grief is not a linear process, that like it comes and goes, it's waves. And
Yeah.
anyway.
That's like W. Che told me once too. It's like the waves analogy. It's like it comes in waves, and that we wish so quickly, like we just want it over with. I just want to be done with this. But it's like that's the grace of God that it comes in waves like that, not just a huge tsunami, because you couldn't handle it if it was all at once like that. So that ebb and flow of grief is really like a way that God is preserving you in a way, because you can't just process everything all at once and be done with it. But that's how we would like it most times, or at least that's my personality. I'd just like to be done with it and not ever deal with it again. But yeah, I don't know.
I had a recent call with my group from the California. How do we explain what the conference was? Whatever that was. You have like a monthly call, and in my group, the therapist just was telling me like if you're holding on to anything from the past, whether it's relationship or whatever, and it still comes up in your mind or you're still bothered by it, you take those emotions and you actually give them to God by vocalizing them to him. And you need to vocalize them of actually how you're feeling, and until you feel like it's right when it comes out, like even if it's like saying exactly what you don't want to say, but you probably should say it. Even just going on a walk, she just told me, like, because I have a really calm like demeanor and pretty chill, like there is some anger inside about different things that if I just leave it in there, it's not going to go anywhere. Your body doesn't just forget about it. Your brain doesn't just forget about it. It actually just holds on to it. It gets worse and worse. And so she said, like, maybe you want to warn your neighbors, but you should go out on some walks and just start screaming and just start getting that stuff out of you, and really telling the Lord how you feel. And she kind of related it to me as like a creative or a musician, is like that is what David did. Was like he actually vented to God. And I'm so grateful that like how the canon was and everything about leaving some of those scriptures in there, because it was very much David just saying like things that might not even be totally accurate, or like, well, that's kind of strange. Well, it's exactly how he was feeling. And I'm so grateful for those times when he just airs it out. And so anyways, I've been going on more runs recently. I'm not up to your guys' level. You guys run too far, too long, but But it's been cool to.
I can hear-
I try to do a sub 12 mile. That's my goal.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
You yelling at 8 o'clock
every
every
night.
night? Is that when you go out, 8 o'clock?
yeah. Yeah, I can't eat past 8, so I'm like, might as well run. Got to get out of the house. No more cereal. I did have a bowl of cereal the other night, and Danny caught me on it. So
Have you heard the people howling at 8 o'clock? That's what we're talking about.
Oh.
Yes.
I thought you were talking about
neighbors.
the intermittent fasting. I was way off.
All right, you haven't eaten for almost 2 hours. We're gonna give you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good. 8 o'clock, and then Elena is on here. She says she's gonna add screaming. So maybe we all just go outside at 8.
Yeah, get
That's
out.
great. Thank you for that.
There's this Eugene Peterson who wrote the Message Bible, but for
Paraphrase.
yeah. Sorry, Julianne. You got that from me. He talks about the impregnatory Psalms and how David.
Oops.
Oh no, that was gonna be so good too.
You said impregnatory. You know there was some fire coming.
Yeah. Impregnant
Ew.
Psalms.
Pregnant.
Oh man.
Wow, that was gonna be good.
Dang it. Robbie and
Hey,
Julie.
we'll give it just another sec here.
Mm.
Okay. You are the weakest link.
Good away with Blackfoot Communications.
You have any closing thoughts?
What?
Do you have any closing thoughts?
We could all try to finish his sentence.
Yeah, right.
You guys want to watch, take a comedic relief just for a second and see if I. Oh boy.
Oh, hey.
Yay.
How,
Is it sharing it?
Oh, we don't see it yet. No.
No, but do you see our screen?
Yeah.
Just you guys.
Just the normal screen still.
oh, nuts. How do you share the screen? What did you do?
I tried and then I like closed out of it. Then I hit share screen again and it was obvious the next time I tried. I don't know.
Well, are they back? Now I can't find you guys. Oh, here we go. Oh, they're back. Okay. Tell us about Eugene.
Oh, he just says related to David's screamo psalms that we need to learn to cuss without cussing, and learn how to express feeling without being, I think, irreverent or sinful. And I really just like the way he says it. Learn to cuss without cussing. I think that it becomes easier to express our emotions when, or sometimes I think swearing is a cop out for like actually finding out how you feel.
Yeah.
It's just like using words that have anger attached to them. But so I've just always loved that he said that we need to learn to cuss without cussing. That's what David did.
Yeah.
And you have to practice that kind of stuff. You have to, you kind of have to tap into your emotions, which for a guy like me is hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And I would never go out on the street and scream. I couldn't. So I'm gonna have to find, well, I'll do it in my car.
It does seem so. I feel like so much of that starts with the deconstruction of the taboo that exists, though, especially in Christianity, around anger, around grief, around these words that I feel like are generally attributed to something's wrong, like that needs to be remedied. And so much of that can just like consistently produce a narrative of shame. Like, I don't know about you, but I have yet to not be moved to anger during like a day of my life. Like some of those things, that's part of what it means to be human. But there's been along the way for so many of us, some sort of construction or understanding that those emotions and experiencing them and expressing them is bad and it's wrong. And
so much of the harboring of that, as we've all known. Like that's one of my favorite parts of I think it's Psalm 51. It might be Psalm 52. I'm not sure. But David like talks about how kind of holding in the reality of the confession that he has is like it's rotting his bones. Like he's speaking about it as it's physically deteriorating his body. And there's this physiological reality that I think that speaks to of what happens as we harbor grief, as we harbor anger, as we harbor sadness or bitterness, that it's not, I think one of the great deceptions is that not only sin, but the reality of healthy expression of those things is not an isolated event. As much as we want to view it as like, oh, I just stuffed it down today, it has a ripple effect on us, on our relationships, on how we handle things in the future. I just think that's such a valuable conversation to have of it feels wrong, but like, how do you begin to practice grief? What does it mean to become acquainted with practicing grief well?
Yeah.
I think I love just one little thing I'm thinking in the Psalms though, is I feel like David consistently gives an example where he usually ends his Psalms by saying like but God, you. So he's usually like, why is this happening? And my heart, and expressing all of those emotions. But I feel like he doesn't stay there. He ends with like reminding himself of who God really is and the truths of God. And I guess for me, I feel like there is an aspect of choosing to kind of take every thought captive and choosing peace and choosing faith despite how your emotions feel. But that's also why I like those Psalms that David kind of gives that example of like, it's okay to express those, but are you landing back in having faith in God and putting your trust in him and reminding yourself of who God is and what he's done? I just think that's important in those as well.
Wow. Yeah, it's really good. Little plug for our new sermon series we're starting this week. We're talking about the armor of God, and some of Julianne, what you were just saying, just is hitting me as I'm studying like all the different pieces of the armor. How much of it is exactly what you're saying. Like this, we're to put on a helmet, and how it relates to our thoughts and our minds, and how we take those captive, and that's actually a spiritual battle, and how we when we're following through with taking those thoughts captive and being aware where our mind's at. And we're talking about the belt of truth and speaking the truth of God's word into our situations. And I'm just really excited to jump into this. A lot of it, just in what we're dealing with as humanity right now, as we jump into the armor of God. It's going to be so cool how it relates to so much of what we're walking through and how we struggle on the emotional side, and how God's given us the equipment to be successful in that. So little plug for the upcoming series. It's going to be really good. I just want to say to anyone who's watching live now or is going to watch us later, something we've been working on as a team is being able to talk and identify feelings and walk through grief, and just how valuable that is. How and Tucker touched on it. There is kind of this shame culture, whether it's in Christianity or elsewhere, of suppressing feelings. But if we're going to be at our best, if we're going to be completely whole, the value of expressing and walking through grief or loss or hurt or anger. And I know we're working on that a lot as a team. And I just want to say to our church that we want not just our staff to be healthy and whole, but we want you to be healthy and whole. Yeah. And part of pastoring and discipling is not just what comes from a stage or right now a sermon on a screen, but being available to you for those areas. And so we just want you to know our heart for you is however we can help you in this season. Yes, we want to keep providing content, but we want to be available to you. I know we're doing some Zoom calls that are open access to just talk about how you're doing in life. We're scheduling, we're not going to coffee shops doing physical one-on-one meetings, but we're trying to do whatever we can to help with needs. So I want to let you know, yes, we're trying to help out with financial needs, relational needs, emotional needs. However we can help in this season, we would love to be that for you. So don't hesitate to reach out. That's your grief is your grief, and we'd love to help you in this season. But thanks for tuning in tonight. You guys are the best. Thanks for chatting. And I
don't know how to share it, but I'll just.
Come on.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Bet you never seen this on a first date.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that.
Bet you never seen this on a
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Also, this is the picture that I asked her out with. It looks like a pregnant photo. It's a picture of us, but it looks like a pregnancy announcement. Everyone was like, "What?"
Ultrasound.
Yeah. So,
Incredible. Oh, you guys are the best. Thanks for hanging out tonight.
Yeah.
David Witt, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Tuck, you can take